are in for a treat today because we're going to have a conversation about the blues, African history and culture, and the origins of Black music. And I'm going to actually hope to facilitate a conversation between our two distinguished panelists here, Mr. Rico Brooks, to introduce, and Mr. Jontavious Willis, a blues musician. How many people are familiar with the music of Mr. Willis or Rico Brooks? Not too many? Okay. Okay. Well, we're going to be in for a treat because I think we may get some music too, some live music. All right, so let's just get started by just having, I want y'all, if y'all would introduce yourselves, and Jontavious, if you would get started, I just comment to you that I found out that you are a very young man compared to me. I won't say age, well, that's 29. But when you listen to his music, he sounds like he is very, very seasoned and has seen a lot. And it's not just, you can tell it's not just ego, but it's actually the content matter, the perspective. How did you get into the blues? And if you could tell us like a little bit of your background too.
Yep. Yeah, well, first of all, hello everybody, how y'all doing? My name is Jontavious Willis. I'm from Greenville, Georgia, about an hour south here. I was born in LaGrange, Georgia. I started playing blues when I was like 14. I started listening to them when I was 12, and I went from buying popular records to really getting into blues, and started playing guitar first, then I picked up harmonica and banjo, and kept them going, and been playing professionally, well, about 10, 11 years, but on the road pretty heavy, about 10 years, and that's just studied the music. I studied the folks, not so much like homework thing, but because I loved it so much, it was just kind of like the history of blues goes back a little further and it's a little deeper than a lot of people think, because at one time it was a popular music. A lot of people just attribute to it begot everything, but it's so many, and it was young people music too. A lot of people don't think, like a lot of the folks on the old record were 14, 16, 20, some of them were old as well, but most of the folks that were before the 20, 30s, so yeah, I got deep into it. You started go find the 78s, asking about if they have any records, old record, and start collecting. Now I got a few hundred 70 old blues 78 and now, so that's just, I know where I went with it.
So of those few hundred, who's like really one of your big influences that kind of shaped your sound?
That's a few of them.
And I just want to say, you should go to whatever streaming services you get your music from and treat yourself by listening to Mr. Jontavious Willis's music. But who were some of your influences, big influences?
For the longest I didn't think it was blues outside of Georgia, but funny fact is that like outside of Chicago and New York, the first real studio that recorded blues in Atlanta in 1923, so a lot of the early blues singers came from it. But all the folks, man, really all of the people, I really like the pre-World War II stuff, so like old from like 1920 to like 1937, but I also like the stuff from the late 30s on to the 50s and 60s. The Little Water, Ma Rainey, Blind Lemon Jefferson, Tampa Red, Memphis Minute, Blind Willie McTell, on and on and on and on. I like all the folk.
Okay, yeah, all right. He's definitely gone deep into that and from that traditions. Thank you. Brother Rico, tell us about your work in the music business. How did you get into music and why is it so important to you? When we think about the music tradition, we start with blues, you'll find for me, I connect everything back to Africa, Nile Valley, Congo River Valley, Niger River Valley, but how important is music, contemporary music, to like the cultural state affairs of Black people today? First of all, get to that, introduce yourself, tell us how you got into music.
Rico Brooks from Albany, Georgia. I actually was born into music, believe it or not. So my uncles were DJs, so they had equipment like in the outside shed in the back, and they would leave it there. As a 12-year-old, I would go back there and put the turntable, hook it up to the speakers, and start playing music. As I was born around it, and then my grandmother and grandfather, they were heavily into the Pentecostal church. So I was always, going to church. My grandmother was the mother of the church, so we had to open up the church, and then my grandfather was the deacon, so we had to close the church. So, and I was always around the music, and so I was just born in music. But then when I got a little older, started middle school, high school, I was in the era of hip hop, so I grew up listening to the music that y'all probably tell y'all kids and grandkids to turn that off. That's what my mom would say. I don't want to hear that in my house. It's because I came from a spiritual or religious family. I couldn't play like the hip hop like in the house. I could listen to it on my headphones or whatever, but I couldn't play it in the house. And I know like the music culture, like specifically, I realized how influential our culture was. Like when I got a chance to travel internationally, like as I'm working with. First, I started working with artists, and they took me around the world, like kind of like the Notorious Big songs that I never thought the hip hop would take it this far. Like I literally went to several countries I never thought that I would be able to see. And I don't know if I'm sure we know this. This seems like a very cultured crowd, but like our biggest export, not just for Black people, but just in general, like America's biggest export is culture. So we realized like some of the biggest artists in the world, like you see Beyonce's in France now, but like our music, it influences culture worldwide. Yeah, another part there?
Yeah. So how important is that music? We're facing a lot of challenges right now. Are we using our music in a way that we've done in the past to actually kind of create a soundtrack to Brother Amari? We attended a screening of Soundtrack to Coup d'etat, but are we using our music to create a soundtrack to a liberation struggle, or is it a different purpose? What do you think?
Yeah, growing up, when I came up, I felt like there was always a choice. You can listen to NWA or you can listen to Public Enemy, and both had a worldview, and both were probably expressing their experiences, but they chose. I felt like there was more of it wasn't just like focused on the I wouldn't call it negativity, but the harsh realities of some of our urban communities. But now when I turn on the radio, or when I was listening to streaming or whatever, I see it seems like almost like conflict music, or like at least in urban, and talking about hip hop specifically, it feels like it's not like how Latifah, she had a voice 7%. No, they're all parts put in all that positivity, because it's in like a light shit on as much as it used to be. Like say you watch some of the service channels, they say, okay, we're under the spotlight some people Afrocentric artists, or like artists that promote positivity. There are artists out there, but they seem like their voice almost being like drowned.
Now it's a cue up for anybody in here who's below the age of 37, 38, because I'm interested in hearing your response to that question after once we get into the section where we have a dialogue. But are there artists that you think are actually kind of like doing both things, having that community function, but then also raising consciousness and speaking about the struggle, speaking about liberation? So we'll definitely want to do that. But I want to bring it back to...
You got to introduce yourself, Dr. Livingston.
Oh, my goodness, I'm sorry. My name is Dr. Samori Livingston. You'll see me Samuel Livingston. I'm named after my grandfather, so I decided to take an African name that's very close to his name, and that's why I chose Samori after Samori Touré, the liberation leader from the 19th century. I teach Africana Studies at Morehouse. I'm going to my 22nd or 23rd year, either one, I don't know, one of those. I teach a few classes in short Africana Studies, but the one I enjoy, I shouldn't really say this, but the ones that I enjoy the most are the class on Gullah-Geechee culture that we developed in 2015. And we've been dealing with music. I got like a little book bag I'm a nerd, so I brought a bunch of books about Gullah music and how that influences the blues and all these other things. So we teach a class on that. And then I also teach a class on hip hop culture. And I love that because that's the one I did my graduate study on. So I looked at the Nation of Islam and hip hop culture at Temple University, guided by Dr. Molethi Asante, his then wife, Dr. Kariama Welsh Asante, Yeah, I'm talking too much about myself, but yeah, that's me. That's who I am. So what I was gonna say was, how many of y'all know the artist Nas, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So do y'all know that Nas produced a blues record with his dad, who was a blues musician, Oludare? Y'all familiar?
Yeah.
Yeah, Oludare Jones, I guess. Like that's yeah. But Oludare puts out music. He's a blues and jazz musician, and they put out this song. I want to say it's on the album Godson, and it's the only hip hop song that I know that's actually also like a blues song that's trying to keep it in that tradition. And I forgot the exact name of it, but it's almost to the extent of Levon. You mind? Could you find the name of that song for me? Yes. I'm sorry. Levon, a young scholar here, she's doing work. She's graduated from Howard University a couple of years ago, grad student, but doing great work in Africana studies. But what I was going to ask is, Jontavious, what's the connection between blues and hip hop today? Like, if we look at blues, it's coming out of that tradition in the 1900s, 1920s, 1930s, all the struggles that we were facing at that time. Do you see any connections, direct connections, or if you kind of even just thinking like thematically, but what are some, do you think there are connections between blues and hip hop and Mike Biggs?
Yeah, I think Free Verse was first recorded in Louisville in 1923, they just hitting spit line after line. One of the first songs was Brown Skin Man by Edmona Harris, 1923. So for like the minute mark, she spit for like almost a minute, just straight with the music, And a lot of the topics and a lot of the use of the N-word, you know what I'm saying? Like it was done in the 20s and 30s. And I think the culture was kind of, not necessarily, the same technology, but it was like the same thing with blues. Technology was new then, and it was new way of life for people then. So I think that would be a big deal.
And that does I do think about that. The fact that you had the birth of like these wax records being very, very important, and then wax being foundational to the development of hip hop. Yeah. So no, that's interesting. And then the whole idea that you mentioned about, we think that like, oh, the music today is profane, as if, as in we couldn't go back and listen to Last Poets and every other word is an N-word, or Lightning Hopkins. I mean, Lightning Rod, Hustlers Convention. I would play that for any of my kids. That's almost like I don't even want to play my students, really. I'm supposed to be like, oh, what's going on here?
If y'all into that type of thing, I tell you, look up a record called Shave 'Em Dry by a lady named Lucille Bogan. It was supposed to be a party record, and then they didn't put it out for sale. I tell you, it's one of the worst. In like 1935, but it's tough. It's like stuff I never heard. Check that out.
Rico, you see any connections to that blues tradition, jazz tradition, and contemporary music?
Yeah, definitely. Actually, one of Morehouse brothers, Guru, passed away. He had that. He was with the jazz. That's right. Age during those connections. And some people take their own take of blues, like some of the rappers. They may not think of it as blues, but that's probably their version of what take on is. Like, say, like you hear like a wire wavy, like, why this guy always, whining and fried about for him, or just so I want to call it sad, but he was just very. They may call it emo music. They call it like a form of like emo, but so of course we always historically, like you said, with the because hip hop, most of the early practitioners did actually play instruments. We had to use records, and so we used whatever was in our grandma, our moms, our uncles, whatever was in the collection. We just used it, which was which was genius in of itself. But so we borrowed some of the rhythm we had, whether it's technology or physically, like these records, just put it into music. But I definitely see that there's some others. Just can't think to them in front of mine, but like I remember like just when I was heading into it, like and a lot of guys, they'll use like say like Tribe Called Quest, they'll use like some even though it could lean more jazzy, more, but they would use like some of those players. And he really gave a body feel to us that really resonated.
Yeah. So one of the scholars that we really laid heavy on is Amir Baraka.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's just shout out to Amir Baraka. I know it's Black Music Month, and without blues people, that book Blues People, I don't know where we would really be in terms of understanding our historical intellectual to blues, and then he showed how jazz and blues are connected. And I'm glad you mentioned Guru. I met not one of the artists, but a librarian at Prairie View. So one of the things, basically, just keep it short there. One of the things that we want to do with our students is to have them understand and appreciate that connection.
Yeah.
The connection between how music basically bridges the gap. And that's the name of the song, I think, Bridging the Gap by Nazi. Yes. So talk about bridging gaps. How do you see, first, before we can bridge the gaps, let's talk about the locations. What are the cultural cradles? What are the places where Black music is really born and bred, where you see different traditions and styles coming from? Take us to school, Jontavious, and just kind of refresh our memory on where you see some of those cradles of Black music.
Saturday and Sunday. Because I'll give you a good example of a through line. Georgia Tom from Villa Rica was started off as a cowboy preacher. Then he stopped, and then he decided to do blues music. And then he put out a song called Tight Like That. And it sold like 1 million copies, made 1.7 million. But he eventually stopped because he said that the market was dry. Tight like that. Him and another fella, he did right. Him and another fella, they did it for a while. And then he decided to start gospel music in the early 30s. And so he wrote the song, Precious Lord, Take My Hand, If You See My Savior, Peace in the Valley. And when the gates swing open, became the father of gospel music, known as Thomas Dorsey. So they're like one of those through lines. I think a lot of that's what you find, the Saturday music and Sunday music, because some folks don't let us fill over and some people do.
Yeah, with Bill Ricker. Absolutely. So I like how you did that. You took a question about place and you turned it into time. Yeah, we talked about that in Black Saturday Hip Hop and how that idea of time and space, we've been crossing back and forth between these notions for a long time. So I won't get into that right now. But actually, that was a good time. We're talking about freedoms. Got to look at, to me, Congo River. We talk about Guru. Guru starts that song, jazz thing. Says it started in the Congo with the drum and strong flow. And I love it because it like literally automatically connects like a young listener to that African tradition. I think about blues and you really think about the Niger River and how these Mandeka hunters would go with their strength, with that they say the bow. Some people say the I forgot was the name of it. It's either the kora. The kora in West Africa might have actually been a version of a bow in Africa, and it just created a particular sound. And then they started making music to these stringed instruments. But so the Mandinka, that's a big part of it. The Niger River Valley, and what we call griots, they call jays, right? Jays meaning literally the blood. So for them, like these musicians, trained musicians, storytellers, they would travel throughout the kingdoms in Mali and Songhai and Ghana, and they would tell stories, connecting the people. So in a way, it's like music has that kind of like that political edge to it. But I'm thinking too, what today, Rico, you more in tune with contemporary music. What are the cultural centers? Where is music really being produced creatively? I know we're in Atlanta, so I wasn't have to be like, we're not in the heart in some ways of it, but where are some other places too?
Yeah. So historically, especially around a lot of the urban centers, so you see places like, Los Angeles, of course, New York, where hip hop was birthed, and then also you had like media, and there were pathways to actually like go from in Atlanta. a lot of artists didn't know. We just had the advantage of like, we could literally make a record in the studio, take it to a strip club like Magic City, which Magic City changed so many people's lives. Or how you feel about it is your opinion. But we actually had kind of like an infrastructure. Or you may have a program director who's in the club listening to what's hot, so he or she could be like connected to what's going on. Then they hear that record in the club, they say this needs to be on the radio. Then it gets on the radio. Then the radio, this song's getting played on the radio. There's an A&R in New York who's checking media base of BDS. Those just reports that show what records are being played in a certain market. They say, oh, why is this record playing? Then they call and they say, "Go need it." And so I seen it literally from the ground up. Like just even if you skip the club, if you skip radio mix show, I was working at retail when I graduated from Morehouse, right there in the West End. So I got a chance to see firsthand like T.I. coming through there with their CDs. Hey man, I want to put these in the store. A guy named Block Russell Spencer who gave me my first chance in music, and he had actually 3 groups signed to Bad Boy. How do you feel about Diddy? You have a right to that opinion. He's going through something right now, but we were able to like do some business with Bad Boy through the deal, first with Universal, then through Atlantic. So we had 3 groups. So basically, these groups were coming from the streets, and we kind of like when the buzz was going in through the clubs, guys could go from club to club, like performing songs, making records. And because Atlanta was a hub, like, so then, they hear it, and then next thing you know, the market the word starts spreading. But then you fast forward now, Atlanta, because of the advent of technology, the music is able to be produced much more cheaply. And normally you had to be like outside to these shows or these different events. Now you literally, your grandson or granddaughter could put a record out today, and then I get a call like, "Hey, have you heard of Miss Johnson's son?" I'm like, "No, I never heard of him." Well, he just say from Atlanta, but he didn't go do those historical channels. He's literally he or she just literally uploaded a record to TikTok or YouTube, and it went viral. And then now you're getting calls from New York, and so now what I'm seeing is like where it used to just be Atlanta, New York, LA. Now I'm seeing like cities that you normally wouldn't think of, like just say like Tampa, somebody popping up because they, though she put out some records and now she's getting the buzz and now she's worldwide. Like it's
and again, bridging the gap from Tampa to LA, going with Top Dog. And I love Doechie's music and the way that she's presenting herself.
Yep.
Again, you can disagree with some of the language sometimes, whatever. I'm old, I'm 56, so yeah, whatever. That shit is as old or young, whatever it is. But I love her music. She's storytelling, and that's the key thing. She's spitting for real.
It's really like when I first heard her, I was just like, I heard the first radio song, but sometimes you get a radio single, and sometimes the radio song is for the song. They need the record label needs to make money. Yeah. But then when you peel back the onion, and you peel back, and you dig a little deeper, I'm like, hold up, she's using like Umvat beats that Karis One would use, like, some of those old school. And I'm like, man, this she's rapping like, she can really like take out some of these guys, so like she's really skilled.
Oh yeah, no, that part, absolutely. And you mentioned the strip club culture here in Atlanta, and you say in Miami.
Yep.
Probably Houston too.
Yeah,
they are big, very big. But let's be clear that sexuality and music goes. I mean, you can find that all the way in Africa. You find the blues. Let's what I'm saying, not like judge too much. Exactly, like, oh well, folks are doing a music around strip culture. Okay, I'll stop right there. I'm gonna So. I do want to begin to get ready to open it up to like a conversation. But just one of the things that really kind of stood out to me is Brother Najee reached out, and was that we have such a great opportunity here in Atlanta, not just because it's, the city is too busy to eat, the capital of the South or whatever. but it's like the mix of African and people from the global South who are here. It's like there's something special here. There's something special. Is that something that's just recent, Jontavious, or do you think that's like a more Hispanioran, like historical pattern, or how important is that today? Is blues like kind of global, and does it have that mix today? And who's celebrating the blues in particular that's not here just in the States?
Yeah, I think they do have the impact. But most of the folks coming to my shows are white. And it's been that way for a while. But it's been that way historically for a while too, because the blues music was community music. A lot of folks not gonna go pay to hear people that they hear at the house. They don't value stuff at the house. My great grandmother passed Tuesday. When she was 100, she was 101, she would have been 102 next month. And I interviewed her because nobody interviewed my come mama. And I figure we don't think about how important it is just if you're interviewing your people, and because those stories get blurry after a while and you forget some things after a while. And other people will record it for you though, and then they'll try to sell it back to you too. That kind of what we dealing with right now. I play a lot of places. Blues is one of the only music that really, there's a blues festival everywhere. I mean, Australia, I'm talking about UK, I'm talking about Japan, every single place. But most of the, and then it kind of backtracked the song to the question you said prior about talking about current topics. It's kind of a struggle. It shouldn't be, but it kind of is. Because back in the day, blues were for the people. So you were writing the song and you didn't have nobody else in mind. But I can write a song today and I can hope that my folks are here, but the general ears that come to my shows and the general ticket buyers and the general promoters and the folk that work in the festival and the folks that look in the festival, and all of those folks look just alike, and they've been that way for a while. But there's a lot of black entertainers that come to the blues now that haven't been before. Like folk younger than me, a lot of my help come along because it's an industry that it can be profitable, not profitable as a pop star crop, but profitable enough for you to retire yourself, profitable for you enough to travel and buy yourself things, because it always been that way. But you just have to manage yourself and on and on. Well, sorry, I'm done. People going wrong. Yes, but yeah, that's how I feel about that. All my supporters are white folks. I would like to see more black folks into it, because I think they associate blues as slavery music, and I had to tell them that this is post-slavery. It's freedom. It's freedom. It's like this is when the people first had a chance to say something, and then that what made it so powerful to me, because and also when you listen to the music, you hear all the scratches on it, so you can't really get people to sit down and listen to all the scratches. You never had to listen to music with scratches in it, but you can't hear the artistry, you can't hear the mastery of somebody playing and really hitting the chords and singing at the same time, and you can appreciate the music for it. And these folk invented things. They'll talk about the harmonica. It's a German instrument. This is a German instrument. But when I go to Europe, it black faces that's on the selling it, you know what I'm saying? And the harmonica started off at 56. It was a band instrument. They were playing it, like, and some black girls are it changed So I feel like but it seems like we're coming into a centennial celebration of a lot of things. It's been 100 years, and we going back and looking, even all the movies that coming out, all the pictures they always come out, and they hyping people up and they get them excited.